see it, I see it. Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. My name is Abby Wray, and I am a senior here at Kansas Wesleyan University. I am a double major in communications and public relations with a minor in English. And I am very, very excited to be here today in front of you all. This presentation today is going to be about my experience in the past, present, and future in news. News is something that I have not known that I wanted to go into my entire life. Something that rather kind of fell into my lap due to opportunities that my high school started offering my senior year. My senior year, my high school branched off and created a career academy where students could learn phlebotomy and welding and broadcast journalism. And they needed an anchor for that show, and someone suggested my name. And this kind of blossomed into my future career of broadcast journalism and being a multimedia journalist, reporter, and anchor. So that's what this is about to be about. So I kind of went through a non-traditional journey. Oftentimes people will go to school for journalism, obviously, and that's something that our university simply does not offer. That does not mean that it is impossible with the classes given at Kansas Wesleyan, but it creates kind of a tougher time holistically. How I kind of began was this student reporting, student anchoring in high school, and it blossomed throughout my time in college. I obviously have been involved in debate and forensics and theater for a very long time. I did it all throughout high school and throughout college, and these are opportunities to truly build my public speaking skills into what they are today. I don't think that I would be the person that I am today without debate and forensics, and I don't think I would have the public speaking, presentation, and critical thinking skills without it. And so I am eternally grateful for the recruitment process to Kansas Wesleyan, to, of course, Gary Harmon for recruiting me. And I'm just very appreciative of all of the opportunities that I've had for forensics, debate, and theater, because it has truly pushed me to be the best that I can be. The way that I kind of got into journalism in college to solidify where my career is going is through a series of internships. And the only reason that I was able to get those internships is because of networking, largely networking that my communications professor did. He knew someone at KWU, and he was able to get my resume in front of his face and my resume in front of his boss's face, and that kind of got me started at KWU. And my internship was not super traditional in that I just worked for a period of time and then I went off. My first internship was right before my junior year of college, and it was both unpaid and not for school credit. So I was just committed to the craft. I wanted to learn what it was like to be in a newsroom for an extended period of time. I wanted to learn what the day-to-day duties of a multimedia journalist or reporter were. And this allowed me to have that jumping off point to solidify that I know that this is the path that I want to pursue. So I spent that entire summer, and I was there 4 days out of the week, full-time. It was an amazing experience, and one that accumulated into basically a 2-minute long video that I'd like to show for you. This was after, again, that first internship before my junior year, so this video is a little bit old, but I think it shows kind of the difference in my editing style and how it has shifted and changed throughout my time in news. So I'm going to play that for you now. This was the final project that I had to do for my first internship and kind of a package about my experience and my growth during that time.
After spending over 280 hours in the newsroom, I learned so much. There's only one thing the station couldn't quite beat out of me.
You still call me sir, which I just kind of come to deal with.
Jackson Overstreet is just one of the many reporters that I had the joy of working with. He said my greatest area of growth over the course of the internship was informality. He says that news has changed over the years.
It's not all prim and proper back maybe it was in the 60s and 70s.
Another reporter and producer at Cake, John Hayes, one of the best writers at the station.
I feel like you came in motivated, but after you actually knew how everything worked, it became a lot easier to just slide you in.
I spent time with anchors, reporters, and photographers. Nolan Roth, a Cake photog, taught me many things, but one particularly important subject.
How to edit quicker. I definitely saw a huge improvement through your time here as stories kind of got more complicated, your editing got faster.
I now know day-to-day operations of a newsroom, proper story pitching methods, true news writing and editing techniques, and the people skills necessary for a successful career.
I would say your performance is pretty linear. You obviously start in a new place, and then you're going to have your graph of learning things and moving things forward. You never really had any dips. You were constantly learning, improving, taking notes, and doing it that way, always asking questions, which is the most important thing in this business, because it's your job, ask questions.
Brendan Barger started news after working at a camera shop and is the master of all things lighting at Cake. One of the biggest takeaways from this summer is that I need to relax and take the punches as they come. Who would have thought?
Noticing time restraints and not stressing too much about time and just learning how to sometimes you just have to throw some amount of time on it go and learning that that's okay.
I'm truly going to miss all the people at Cake and treasure all the educational opportunities for many years to come.
So a little rough for anyone that might, goodness gracious, just what we need. A little rough for anyone that knows editing or how a news package looks. That's not the best work in the universe, but I would like to say that I've grown since this time. Obviously, I have still things to work on, like formality and things of that nature, but it's hard to kind of make that shift holistically. So that's something I'm still working on. So after this first summer for my internship, that following winter break, I couldn't get enough of the newsroom. And so I spent my winter break also unpaid, also not for credit, just soaking in hours in this newsroom, trying to get my hands on any story that is possible. And it was really interesting because that was my first time that I had the opportunity to work with extreme weather. That was the day when Salina saw 99 mile-an-hour winds, and I was working that day. So that was, quite the experience in and of itself. I would say that that section of my internship was well worth it. But that brings us to this past summer and my real internship, what we might call it now, which is I got paid and I got credit for it, which is sick. I got paid because they wanted to hire me as a part-time reporter over the summer. So this wasn't just for internship credit, and it wasn't just them paying for this internship. They wanted to hire me as a reporter. They wanted to air my packages. They wanted me to be a part of the team and be involved, and that was an incredible opportunity in and of itself, and I'm very grateful for that team for that opportunity. And so we can see that the way that I've been able to learn was first by watching and following around reporters and anchors and producers during that first time that I had my internship during the first summer. And then I was able to actually do it all my second time, which was very empowering and educational. So my experience throughout all of my internship experience was with Cake News, which first became a news station in 1954. They became an ABC affiliate in 1955 and still remain an ABC affiliate to this day. And then they were purchased by the overarching company Lockwood Broadcasting in 2016, and that is the company that owns them today. Lockwood Broadcasting owns about, I think, 6 to 9 news stations throughout the nation today. And during my most recent summer at CAKE, the president of Lockwood Broadcasting decided to visit the station one day. And I scheduled a private meeting with him, and I just so happened to have my resume with me that day. And I was able to talk with him about opportunities in the future in Lockwood. And that's when he first mentioned that they have a station in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is something that is unbelievable for me because that's kind of exactly where I want to end up. So to preview kind of the end of this, that conversation went very well, and I'm very grateful for that. So my goal of my internship holistically was to learn about the day in the life. I didn't even know what a reporter's duties were on a day-to-day basis. I just knew they were on the TV, you know, giving you the news at the end of the day. So I figured I needed to learn a little bit more about that process, and I was able to with the help of David Williams, who was the news director, Dave Grant, who was the assistant news director, and an absolute myriad of reporters, photographers, anchors, and producers. The entire station was incredibly welcoming and very, very informative. They would let me be anywhere within the station, ask any question whatsoever, nothing was off the table, and it was extremely beneficial holistically. So what does a day in the life of a reporter kind of look like? For those of you that might know, and I didn't know before this, it starts off as a morning meeting where we're all kind of having a huge brainstorming session. What kind of stories do we want to pursue within the day? What kind of events are going on in the market that we're in? What needs to be put on the news? And that final decision comes down to what the news director wants. But it's the reporter's job to give suggestions and to give story ideas on a day-to-day basis. And that was something that my superiors very quickly complimented me on because I was able to consistently come up with story ideas on a daily basis. Fresh stories, being able to localize, nationalize stories, knowing what's going on in the community. All of this is incredibly beneficial for building a solid portfolio and building a solid reputation within the news business. And so that's something that people quickly kind of picked up on. So after you have your assignment for the day and you know what kind of story you'll be pursuing, then you begin working on that story. You have to make calls, set up the interviews, figure out how logistically your day is going to be working out. And oftentimes you can be met with a dozen no's right off the bat. If you know that you're going to do a story about car part shortages and you start calling stations and if you start calling different businesses and car dealerships about car part shortages, you might get turned down by a dozen before one says that they're even willing to be open to an interview. And then you don't know whether they're going to have good sound during that interview. That's a whole different issue. So you find out the logistics of your day, and then the fun begins. Then you start filming the B-roll that is necessary. You start doing the interviews, setting up those stories, and writing all of the scripts that you're going to need for that day before finally editing it all together and being ready to go live and have that final product exactly when it is necessary for it to occur. So at Cake News, they would do news shows at 4, 4:35, 5:36, and then 10. So you could have a story in multiple different shows, and you would need to have different versions of that story or just a myriad of different things. And so it's very important to have that finished product exactly when they need it to. The editing software that you use in news is different than traditional editing software. Oftentimes people use Adobe Premiere or DaVinci, but we've used Edius, at least within the Lockwood Broadcasting sector in my experience. So this is a short list of some of the stories that I had the opportunity to cover just this last summer. So that means that all of these stories aired on television, that my voice was featured, if not my face, and that I had the opportunity to obviously work with all of the people involved in making this many different stories. It was an incredible experience. I got to see all of the parts of news. I think that I got the good, the bad, the ugly, the weather, the incredibly tragic. There's just so many different stories to tell when you're a reporter that getting a taste of that really either turns someone on to the news business or turns someone off to the news business. And for me, my love for this industry just grew with every single day that I was in that newsroom. And I know that I'm in the right field for the time being, as long as I continue to have that feeling. And it's really empowering. So I'm about to show you my newsreel. This is about 5 different packages that I did and then some anchor practice. So everything that I'm about to show you aired on TV except for the anchoring practice, obviously. They wouldn't let me anchor on TV. Who would have thought, you know? Apparently you need a degree for that. But yeah, so I'm going to show you this newsreel and then kind of continue.
It started off just being like, oh, like, it's noisy, oh, it's annoying, but now it looks like this is impacting the business like a lot more.
Moxie Junction employees tell us they've been open since 2014, but recently the coffee house has been dealing with relentless construction that is impacting business.
We've had to change our drive-through, we've had to change where we park, and right now it's just almost inaccessible to get there.
Moxie has come up with a very creative solution to this problem.
We are standing here in the Ace Hardware parking lot on Mays Road that has become the new and unlikely home for Moxie Junction's coffee truck.
It opened up the drive-up and walk-up coffee trailer yesterday with the hopes that customers will follow.
We are avid Moxie Junction fans. We have been for several years. I made a special trip up here just for this, and I'll be back.
And even though it's only serving a limited menu for the time being, Marissa Martinez tells us what keeps customers coming back for more.
I just feel like we care a lot more about our customers and like we put a lot more time and like care into like what we're making and putting out for the people.
It's clear the business is passionate not only about its customers, but the mission behind Moxie.
The name Moxie, it stands for Mothers of Exceptional Individuals, and the mission behind it is to support and employ young adults with special needs in and around the community.
While there's no clear date of when the coffee shop will be back in business, the company says it's taking things day by day. West Wichita, Abby Wray, KWU on your side.
Many of my veterans feel that they're broken, they're damaged, and I would just like to reassure you that you're not.
Fireworks season can be a double-edged sword for many who serve their country. While they recognize the importance of celebrating patriotism and independence, sometimes it comes at a cost for those suffering from PTSD.
For me, it manifests itself with severe Russian.
People with PTSD, especially combat veterans, can become triggered by
The flash of the lights, the smell of the gunpowder in the fireworks, and certainly the noises. Those are going to people are going to re-experience trauma based on that.
One veteran explained how she copes with the 4th of July.
Pretty much stay at home, turn up the TV, and just kind of bear through it.
Others use resources provided by the VA, like support groups or therapies.
That camaraderie, that support, being able to communicate with somebody who understands, who's been there, done that kind of thing, that really helps you.
Remember to be mindful of city ordinances for firework height, times that fireworks can be shot off, and who your neighbors might be.
Not all veterans are able to get through this day without an issue, but there are some that are.
If you want additional resources, check out KWU.com for the Veterans Crisis Line.
There's riders this year on the road from 8 to 83, so covers a lot of territory.
Cyclists of all ages gathered for a tradition that began 49 years ago, biking 512 miles across Kansas. The event involves cyclists attempting to beat the heat while making the 7-day-long ride as enjoyable as possible.
We start about as early as we can, and the motivation of a cool AC at the end of our ride, it helps.
While this may seem like an impossible task, 40% of the participants are attempting their first VAK.
You need to do a little preparation ahead of time. You need to have 500 training miles under your belt before you start.
This doesn't stop people from being a part of the VAK community.
So many different types of individuals can do it. You can be fast, you can be a Clydesdale. Everybody can enjoy it at whatever speed they want to go.
We actually rode with someone we didn't know today, and we made a good friend with them.
You meet all kinds of people who've traveled the world, and you can hear their stories and their adventures. It's so much fun.
It's clear these cyclists aren't thinking of retiring anytime soon. Reporting from Hutchinson, Abby Wray, KWU on your side. Running isn't the only thing being taught at the Level Up Camp for the visually impaired, but it's one of the most empowering.
I feel really good about it because that's how I can express myself with music. Music's my life. I love music.
The Envision Level Up Life Skills Conference is happening this week with the help of WSU, and they're hosting 30 high school age students from all across the nation. Hosts of the event say it's more than just an educational opportunity, but a social one too.
This is a unique chance for them to get together, to learn from each other, to share their experiences, and also to just build friendships and relationships that take them way beyond the Level Up program.
Most of the individuals working the camp are graduate students from WSU getting degrees in
being able to see what you see the first day and then just
the students attending the camp are learning about cybersecurity, welding, broadcasting, culinary arts, financial literacy.
Advocate for myself a little bit better. I helped a gentleman open a door not too long ago.
It opens up the world. When you have certain restrictions that is imposed on you by the world, this helps them say, yeah, no, we just got to navigate to get to the yes. And that's what we're about, is navigating to get to the yes.
The camp focuses on the power of choice, opportunity, and independence for all. Abby Wray, KWU on your side.
This apartment right here is directly behind that one.
Kyla Burkholder's life was uprooted yesterday when a 3-alarm fire broke out in her apartment building.
It was chaotic. There were so many people, there was so much smoke, you couldn't see anything.
She wasn't in the apartment at the time of the fire, but when she pulled in just 10 minutes later,
my apartment was done. I knew it from right then. I mean, I broke down, I cried, I didn't know what else to do.
Her home, as well as 15 other apartments, were on fire. And even though everyone was evacuated safely, she says that doesn't lessen the blow.
My heart is broken. My whole world is like crashed. I have no clothes. I have nothing. Literally nothing. No bed, no toiletries, no nothing. I have nothing left.
The apartment complex
this might be the coolest place in Kansas.
If we were upstairs,
It's usually around 68 degrees year-round.
Whether you're trying to beat the heat with your family or simply learn more about local mining operations, the Strata Salt Mines will be the place to cool off this summer. Reporting in Hutchinson, Kansas, Abby Wray, KWU on your side.
From the Cake Studios, an update from your #1 news source, KWU on your side.
Good afternoon, I'm Abby Wray with this KWU update. A Kansas pilot is left dead after a plane crash in Leavenworth County yesterday. The Kansas Highway Patrol says an experimental airplane was traveling south of the US 24 near Baser when the pilot tried to make an emergency landing in a bean field. When the plane landed, it burst into flames. The Highway Patrol says the pilot, 68-year-old Gary Knight of Lansing, was killed. The Missouri Highway Patrol says the dense fog contributed to a series of crashes on the highway this morning. In the first crash, police say a semi-tractor trailer pulled out in front of another truck and ended up rear-ending the semi. 2 more cars were rear-ended and then a vehicle sideswiped one of the commercial vehicles. There are no reports of injuries. The highway has since reopened, but traffic is still slow. Sedgwick County animal control officers rescued nearly 100 animals from what they call unsanitary and squalid conditions. Investigators say they found cats, dogs, and a pig at a home near Mulvane on Thursday. Vets are evaluating and treating the animals. Several local rescue groups are working to find a place for the animals to avoid putting them down. They will be up for adoption once they're medically cleared. Temperatures are continuing to stay high all across Kansas. One way to beat the heat today is to stay inside, and the Sunflower Summer app is offering free indoor options to entertain the whole family. There are 90 different attractions people can check out this summer, including the Cosmosphere, Exploration Place, Botanica, and so much more. The Sunflower app offers families a chance to do something together, to get educated on new things and to try new activities. The app can be downloaded through the App Store or Google Play. For the latest information on these stories, go to KAPE.com or the free KAPE News app.
So that's my newsreel. That is what I would use if I wanted to apply for a job at any old news station. But I do have other plans. My plans right now are to move to Charlottesville, Virginia, and pursue the opportunity with Lockwood Broadcasting and that company out there with the station CBS 19 News Now. I have spoken to their news director on numerous occasions. I have a meeting set up with him in January to finalize the paperwork, and I will be moving out there in May with my partner, and I'm very excited. On top of this, though, I also do not feel as though I've done quite enough. And so this next semester, I'm going to be focusing on getting my commercial drone pilot license, because that's one of the only things that you can do within this field to boost your earnings in any way, shape, or form. I would say that I am a pretty academic person. I would say so. But if I were to go and get a master's degree in broadcast journalism, it would not boost my rate of pay a single dollar. That's just not the way this field works. It's based on experience and different types of features that you can bring to the job. And so something that would actually boost my earnings would be that commercial drone pilot license. And that's why I wish to pursue that. And with Paul's help and with a whole semester of studying, that's certainly my intention within this next semester. Got pushed off a little bit because of my stats class, but I believe that we can get back on track, guys. This is obviously a picture of Charlottesville, Virginia. I am super excited at the opportunities presented, and I'm really looking forward to moving out there, to visiting that area, to figuring out where we're going to be living, and I just think the future is very bright. I'm very excited about it. So that is all that I have ready. I did, however, want to give people the opportunity to ask questions, both about this field generally and about my experience, about my future, about broadcast journalism, about anything at all. I wanted to give people the opportunity to ask questions. I can also flip back to the different stories that I covered if someone has a question about a specific story, but anything of that nature, I really wanted to give this opportunity. Yes? Yeah, so to produce a video that ends up on TV is within the day. That's kind of the interesting thing about news, is it is the kind of thing that you have to be able to figure out what you're going to be doing on that day, and you're going to have at least one finished product by the end of the day. We call different versions of one product treatments. So you might get a specific story assignment like, oh, I want you to do this car part shortage, and then we need a package for the 4, and we need a VOSOP for the 5. And so you might have to do different edited versions of that all within the same day. And that's why we use the editing software Edius, because it's a simplified platform and it's going to be easier to edit linearly and quicker. So, yes?
What's a package and what's a boson?
Yeah. So a package is a type of news story that I presented for you. You saw 5 different packages. That's where you're hearing the reporter give a voiceover to the information, and then there's going to be SOTs, which is sound on tape, so interview clips weaved within that, as well as B-roll, which is all the video that is not of the actual interview itself. It's when all of those things come together and are wrapped in a beautiful package. Yes?
Do you write your own commentary that goes on each script?
Yes, so you do have to write your own scripts, and then there's usually an approval process that it has to go through. Most of my scripts got approved pretty fast, I would say. There's slight changes. Any changes that really went on for my scripts were usually to shorten them or to make them written in the more 5th or 8th grade reading level that they're supposed to. I'm personally pretty inclined to write at a higher level than that, and so I've had to kind of rein that in and learn to adapt my language, to adapt that grammar to be more simplistic, because that's the standard for news these days. Anything you're reading in a newspaper, anything you're watching on a television is at a 5th to 8th grade reading level. Mm-hmm.
Working with an editor on that, what position do you work with to do that kind of editing?
For the writing? So if I was writing a script, I would give that script to either an anchor or to the assistant news director, and they have enough experience in writing that they were able to edit those scripts based off of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you pitch if you're in the meeting in the morning and you have a really cool story idea, if you pitch it, is it yours if it's approved, or can someone of higher rank than you snatch it from you and they cover that story?
Yeah, so not inherently, definitely. It is not, if you pitch it, that's completely yours. So you kind of have to fight for your own within the newsroom. I've seen people do some pretty serious rock, paper, scissors, for the story. So I've been warming up. I'm really good at rock, paper, scissors now. But it's just something that you have to kind of be willing to fight for. Yes?
So for my class this semester, you did a dialect report on the broadcast dialect. So I know about it, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit with everyone here, a little bit more about how you had to change your own dialect to be a news reporter.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first decided to get into news and first started news, I didn't realize that there was a specific voice that you had to learn to do that. And news is moving further away from a specific accent or dialect. But overarchingly, when you put on the news, you're hearing the news dialect, the news accent. And that comes from the transatlantic accent that was in the early 1920s and before. And it is kind of transformed to just be this completely non-regional specific voice so that you can't place where a reporter or anchor is from. And one of the biggest reasons that for that change is because reporters and anchors and people in news move so much. You're very rarely in the same spot for longer than a year or so until you find your forever station. And so if you have a news reporter from Texas that sounds like they're from Texas moving to Washington, they're not going to be respected in the same way that someone with a completely flat accent would. And so most people choose to standardize their voice. And as I've moved to do that more so, people comment that my normal speaking voice sounds more and more like a news voice, which is probably true, but I don't really hear it, so it's up to you. Yes?
I know historically they sent out news crews, but due to camera technology and other things, is it usually just you now doing all the camera work, B-roll, interviewing, or do they still send out crews?
So the position that I will probably be pursuing in Charlottesville and for the first few years is something called an MMJ, a multimedia journalist, and that is also known as a one-man band. In my experience at Cake and during my internship, I was always with a photographer because they didn't feel comfortable sending, someone without a degree into the field. So I definitely had the accompaniment of a photographer, but in the future, I definitely plan to be shooting all of my own video, editing all my own video, writing for myself, voicing it, and doing live shots. Doing solo live shots is one of the most difficult and in a lot of ways dangerous things that reporters and anchors have to do, but it's something that you have to be able to do to be able to be consistently employed. So, yes?
Sorry to keep asking questions, this is very interesting. How do you find your ideas? Are you doing research every day?
Yes. Definitely doing research every day. Absolutely. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I received in my early days at Cake was to join as many local Facebook groups as possible. I would say that social media really ties people together nowadays, and that is a tool for journalists to use. And so being a part of as many Facebook groups, as many social media groups, following the right people on your professional social media accounts, so you know what's going on at Exploration Place today, or what's going on at the Stradica salt mines, or what's going on in that market. And so for me, something that I've begun doing with my professional social media presence is I've begun following all of those different necessary sectors in Charlottesville, because I already follow them in Wichita because I had that experience. And so now I'm trying to connect with that Charlottesville market and learn kind of the ins and outs of that area. And that's going to be a very big challenge to overcome. I obviously have the upper hand being from Wichita and then doing my internship in Wichita. And that was incredibly beneficial for building my confidence in story suggestion and such. But one of the biggest things is just to localize national stories, because people always have something to say about what is going on nationally. And usually there's a very specific tie to your local market. Yes?
What is the craziest story that you've covered?
Craziest story I've covered. One of the craziest stories I've had to cover was a gentleman who was sitting in a parked car in his driveway, in his parents' driveway, listening to music, and someone came up and shot him. And we got there, we could see the broken glass, we could see some blood that was there, and we were there when his godmother found out that he had passed. So we were there to deal with, a screaming woman in the road, dealing with a very emotional situation. And it's very humbling to see something like that. It's very humanizing. And it proves how quickly, all of our lives can change in a moment. Obviously, gun violence is something that is a reoccurring issue that is growing in America. And so I don't foresee that as my one and only, story that I will do covering gun violence. But it's something that's really stuck with me, and seeing someone in that emotional of a state kind of compose themselves because they wanted to tell the story of that gentleman who had lost his life. And so being there, comforting them through that process, being empathetic, being willing to show your own emotions as a news reporter. That's a common misconception, is that reporters have to be 100% straight-faced the entire time. You have to show empathy to get these people to trust you, to get people to respect you. I mean, if you just stand there like a brick wall, like nothing's going on, people are going to think you're a sociopath. They're not going to think you're a reporter. And so I really learned a lot of empathy that day. Yes?
Why do you want to do this?
I want to do this because I want to tell people's stories. I want everyone to have a voice. I think that I can tell people's stories in a really beautiful way. And I think that truth is something that is lacking oftentimes in people's perceptions of media. I know that the media and news have a really negative connotation today, and I've received quite a bit of backlash for my decision to pursue this field. but I think that we need someone who we can trust on the TV. And I would really like to be that person. Yes?
How do you handle the workload? Because it sounds like day to day, it seems such a challenge to get a story on. How do you deal with it day in, day out?
And I think that that's something that is going to be a big challenge. You know, my first year of doing news, 365 days, you know, just doing it for the stints of summer, I didn't ever get overwhelmed or feel like it was too much, but that is still a short stint. I think that's something that I'm going to be learning and growing and adapting to on a day-to-day basis. I know that I have learned the importance of self-care, not just through Paul Green and the communications department, but in my time at Cake, the importance of taking care of yourself in these super emotional situations, because you see people's highest highs and their lowest lows. And so I think it mostly evens out, but it's going to be a give and take on a day-to-day basis. Yes?
What would you say was the most surprising technical skill that you had a chance to apply or learn?
That's a good question. I think that my video editing was something that's not very strange or anything, but I didn't know a ton about video editing beforehand, and the people at Cake really assisted with some of the smaller things. I don't know if you caught it, but there were like white flashes of light in a couple of the stories in the sound bites that were occurring. And so that's when you're putting together two different clips without the jump cut in there. That was something really interesting that I learned how to do, something that's super beneficial when you want someone to say, you know, this sentence that they said here, and then also this sentence that they said way down here, and not all that middle stuff. So that was something that was really beneficial. So you're not showing the jump cut. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yeah?
Have you ever felt in danger?
Yeah. I've felt in danger, not a ton. There's one time in particular that sticks out, and I was not the reporter on this. I was following around a reporter, and there was a manhunt for an armed gentleman who had taken his girlfriend and their child, and it was kind of a hostage situation, and he had put them in a wooded area, and we were standing right outside of this wooded area. And we could see the helicopters, you know, circling, and we had to be pushed back by police. Police, you know, approached the news car, said, "Hey, you know, you can't be this close. This is in a dangerous area." And it was in that moment where I was like, "Wow, we're really gonna get into it during some of these days." But I think it's worth it. I do feel as though it's worth it holistically. Yes.
Was there anything in your high school experience or history that you think helped prepare you to get into this field before you even got to college?
I mean, I again would like to highlight debate and forensics and theater. I think that I would literally not be the person that I am without those programs, both in high school and in college. I think that there are so many skills that people can gain from activities of that nature that you can't gain from throwing a ball around, guys. Hate to break it to you. But I think that the skills from those, as well as the anchoring in that initial broadcast journalism program that I was in, anchoring is a lot harder than it looks. And being able to follow your eyes along with all the different words you have to be able to say, and you can't be thinking too much, and yet it's a very complicated process. And so getting a head start on that, I think, really was beneficial holistically for me. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah?
What is your ultimate goal with all of this? Where do you see your end game? I mean, I don't, it will be years and years and years, but just curious, what is your top thing?
Yeah. If I'm being 100% honest, I do not know if I will die a reporter or a news anchor. They say that people our age change career paths 7 times on average within their lives. And so if, you know, I don't end up in the news field later on, I think that that wouldn't be, you know, a great tragedy holistically. I think I got a good 10 years in the news industry, you know. But after that, I mean, I do have an interest in politics. I've always been very interested and I love Washington, D.C. It's my favorite place in the world. And so doing something out there, press secretary, president, who's to say, who's to say, I don't know. Sky's the limit. Do you have a question? What's your question? Her question was there a topic or a type of story that I didn't get to do at Cake that I want to do later on? Weather was a big thing for me for that first internship. I really wanted to see some kind of strange weather phenomenon, and I was able to do that with the wind. I think that more weather-based things would be interesting. I know that it can often be really devastating, for flooding, for hurricanes, for tornadoes, but it's often an opportunity to rebuild for a lot of these places too. And so covering something of that nature, I think, would be very interesting as an opportunity.
What was your, favorite story to cover, or most memorable? What's most positive?
Honestly, the salt mine story was really, really awesome. That was such a fun day, and getting to ride on this golf cart through these salt mines, because this is a place that I was able to go as a child, and so I have personal memories of this place, and being able to go behind the scenes and ask anyone I want whatever questions I want. That was so much fun. That was really exciting. Yes?
With so much streaming platform and stuff going on these days, how do you foresee the news moving forward with less and less people maybe watching your classic broadcast TV? How do you still get out there and compete on that?
Absolutely, and I think that there are a lot more moves to that live stream type of thing. I know a lot of reporters who will go live on Facebook when they have an immediate news update. I mean, I definitely think that that's a possibility, that things like live streaming on social media platforms, on social media channels is a possibility. I think getting more people involved online versus on the television is the impending future of news. And it's a rapidly shifting industry. I mean, there is huge changes overhauling the system right now, and I know that it's going to create great challenges for me, but I hope that it provides new ways to pave the road too, so I'm pretty stoked. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate it.